Ian, you've served in quite a variety of services throughout the world, one time or another. Would you care to give us a bit of a rundown on these services?
Have we a lot of time to spare?
Well,
I started off
anyway.
with being in school in England. I was called up for English National Service and joined the Royal Navy. Having got a commission in the Royal Navy, I transferred over to the Canadian Navy, because I'm a Canadian by birth, more or less. And I served over there for just on 2 years in submarines as a navigating officer.
Submarine?
It was a British submarine, but with an all-Canadian crew. In fact, it was the first all-Canadian crew in a British submarine that was on loan to the Canadian Navy. I tried for a short service commission, but it didn't wash in those days. This was about 1957, and they were retrenching following the British services policy. So my father was then working in England, and I went over to England on a frigate. And while I was over there, I spent about 3 months in England. My father wanted me out of his hair, so I refused to join the army in those days. So I joined the Colonial Police Service and toddled off to East Africa, where I was there for about 4 years.
That sounds interesting. What sort of work were you doing there?
I was a Special Force Company Commander for a while, and also ran a police district as the officer commanding. I was in on the Congolese riots.
Up from the border?
In, can't remember the date now, I think it was about 59-60. On the border patrolling, preventing the Simbas from coming down into the protectorate of Uganda. I was in on the Soga riots, which were a tax riot because of taxation. They were doubled in tax by the African chiefs, so they rioted. And I was in Uganda when King Freddie started rioting against British rule and declared independence on January the 1st, 1961.
And what made you join the Australian Army?
I went back to England from Africa in '61, and for 3 years I started out with the Royal Air Force Regiment. Patriot Jamil is a somewhat odd colonial, though I don't like the word, insisting on his grub at 4 o'clock and the shower every day. And the money wasn't very good, so one Christmas when I was particularly cold, I saw a digger in a slouch hat at the Australia House, and here I am.
With this, going back to the Royal Air Force Regiment, did you do any flying with them at all?
Not as a pilot, as a passenger on quite a few occasions.
Yeah.
For my first 6 months I was with a field squadron on the Strategic Reserve. We used to train in aircraft for a quick air mobile assault type of tactic.
What are you doing at the moment?
Well, all the time I've been in the Army, I've been with the battalions. Up at Brisbane, 2 battalions to start with, and then when 6 formed in June 1965, I went over to 6, and I've been with them ever since.
And what are you doing in Canberra, Ian?
Well, I came home 3 weeks early to work with public relations because the battalion have written a book. It'll be a pictorial record of the battalion's way of life, mode of operations, and general employment while we were in Vietnam. So I'm here now picking up all the photographs.
This will be a type of a military history.
It is a military history, but it's a very light-hearted, wouldn't be the correct word, but it's a book aimed more for the wives and family and relatives of the blokes that were in the battalion, rather than an official military text.
I suppose this would be of some value to national servicemen in leaving the Army.
Well, this is the main idea. We wanted to have a book which everybody would have a copy of in the battalion, and those who have supported the battalion during our year in Vietnam, because they're all mentioned, as a memorial to those who haven't made it back home, and as a souvenir for those that are leaving the Army, so that they can show their grandchildren and look back later on in life and say, I think with pride, what they did while they were over there.
Now that you're back in Australia, how do you feel about the last 12 months?
I've never been so glad to be home in my life before. I've wandered around the world for, well, a good 12 years, really. And it's terrific to be back in civilization again. For the battalions, it's 12 months under canvas in all sorts of weathering conditions. And if the blokes feel half as much as I do, and I'm sure as they've worked harder than I did, they'll feel terrific about just coming home and being able to relax.
They're pretty well set up there, aren't they, at the moment?
Yes, well, now we are established. It would be it is, in fact, a very pleasant camp. We have our wooden floorboards in the tents. We have canteens and messes, which are huts, kitchens, movies, an open-air movie theatre, which operates every night.
Every night?
Showing very recent movies. And once that we had established the base, it's very pleasant.
It took a bit of establishing, I suppose.
Well, it took us about 4 or 5 months in the wet. When we originally arrived up there last year, there was nothing there at all. It was a overgrown rubber plantation, in fact.
And where do you think you'll be going to from here on?
Well, once I've returned to the battalion for the march through Brisbane on the 14th of June, I'll then go on leave, and after completion of leave, I'm going to the Jungle Training Centre as an instructor.
That's Canungra.
Yeah, to Canungra, yes.
Oh, well, that'll be quite an interesting job for you too. Well, thanks very much indeed, Ian, and all the very best of luck with your book, and all the very best of luck with your future in the Australian Army.
Thanks very much.